compared to imports valued at 50. Say, I hope you're well.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm doing very well.
Great, 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 great. Um, I was going to ask you if this is something we should be jubilating over, but I'll reserve it for the later part of the conversation. We'll start from the basics. First of all, how do you get this data?
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. So, first of all, this data is sourced from the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority. So, from the ICAMS, which is the Integrated Customs Management System, where each and every individual who wants to engage in international trade would have to pass a declaration. So as a result of that, we are able to assess that data, and that's how come we are able to generate these statistics.
Okay, and why is it so crucial? Why is it so important?
Yeah, so international trade, it's one of the major tools that any country can use in terms of development. It gives you an idea of what you have potential to export to other countries who are in need, and then where you can also source for commodities that you don't have the capacity or potential to produce locally.
And I started off by reading some of the findings, but I mean, you are the one with the data. Let's take it from the top. What does the latest report say in terms of our trade and where we are?
Yeah, so the major highlights or findings from the report is that for the second quarter of 2024, like you said in your introductory remarks, we recorded a trade surplus of 5.4 billion Ghana cedis. Simply put, it means that we exported more than we imported in that period of 2024. So usually, like you said, is this something that we should jubilate about, or is something that we should take a critical look at? So for the second quarter of 2024, yes, we recorded a surplus of 5.4 billion, But what Ghana Statistical Service has done is to give further insight and details, which are the commodities that are driving this surplus.
Okay.
So that is what we have made available in this report for policymakers to look at and then see if there are other sectors of the economy that we have potential and we are not paying attention, or we need to strengthen these particular sectors that are helping us record these surpluses.
So let's look at the key drivers that you are referencing here. What are the key drivers?
Yeah, so for Ghana's export, three major commodities have been the major drivers. Gold, crude, and then cocoa has been the major drivers of our exports. So for the second quarter of 2024, these three commodities, in terms of their share to total exports, contributes 83.7% of our total exports. Okay. So breaking them down in terms of shares, gold's share to total export is 57.6.
Gold is 57.6.
Yes.
It means that's the majority.
Yes, that's more than half of our total export value. And then crude is constituting 20%, and then cocoa is 6.1. So these three together gives us 83.7 as the share to our total exports.
So these three, they constitute over 80% of
over
our...
80%.
Now, should that be a source of concern that majority of our exports are just three commodities: gold, oil, and crude?
Yeah, so and that is what Ghana Statistical Service is trying to do, to make sure we provide statistics at the granular level, okay, to guide policymakers to know how we are faring when it comes to international trade. So yes, we have recorded a surplus, and these are the three major commodities that are driving our surplus. So we need to begin the conversation around the impact of these sectors on livelihood. So gold, cocoa, crude, in terms of employment, and then it trickling down into livelihood, we have much granular information now in the reports to guide policymakers. Are there other sectors or other commodities that we have potential, but we are just not paying attention to because we are just comfortable with these three major commodities? So the report, as I indicated, has a lot of details to help policymakers to begin to possibly look at other areas or sectors or commodities that we might have potential, but we have not really paid attention, to be able to become more diversified when it comes to our exports.
And you mentioned the need for us to assess the impacts these products, for instance, are having on livelihoods, as in how many people they employ.
Yeah.
I mean, gold is such a huge industry in this country. At the moment, we're even battling with illegal mining and all that. Doesn't it employ a lot of people?
Well, so, like I said, this is something that possibly the ministries and departments which are in charge of this kind of indicators can now look at, because there is data to show that gold is constituting more than half of our export, which is the major foreign exchange earner. So if something of this nature is that important to us, then we anticipate that policymakers and all the players in that space would begin to look at the entire sector in its totality.
Okay, and has the contribution of gold, has it been growing over the years? Yes. What has been the trajectory?
Yes, so if you look at the statistics from, let's take it year on year.
Okay.
So from the second quarter of 2023, in the second quarter of 2023, the contribution of gold was 47.5%. Then it dipped in the third quarter of 2023 to 42.5, Then it went up again to 50.3 in the last quarter of 2023. Then it hovered around the same 50, and then now to 57.6. So you see there's some kind of improvement in terms of gold's contribution to our total exports.
I mean, this is a question I'm curious to ask, but I don't know if you would have some answers. Are we able to determine which one, for instance, I mean, because we have seen a surge in illegal mining, for instance. Could it be playing a role in the surge in the gold exports?
Well, so
or there's no way to determine that?
Yes, so from where we pick the data from, I mean, anybody who wants or have the intention to export, they make a declaration, so it passes through the customs system, and that's what we are able to capture. And that's our major or our main source of data for this publication.
Okay, so now let's look at gold growing. But then again, in the area of cocoa, we are seeing a concerning decline. What is happening?
Yeah, so if you look at the statistics for cocoa, so if we are looking at it year on year, in the third quarter of 2023, the contribution of cocoa to our total export was 9.0. Currently, as we speak, in 2024 quarter 2, it has dipped to 6.1. So meaning that there is a decline in the export of gold. So this is something...
A decline in the export of cocoa.
Oh, sorry, cocoa, sorry. So there's a decline. So this is something that the report gives much information for policymakers to begin to look at.
Okay. Could you share with us some of the information the report shares in relation to the cocoa element?
Yeah, so for the export of cocoa, in terms of changes year on year, you realize that for the fifth consecutive time, there is like the change year on year is always a drop. So right from 2023 quarter 2 up to 2024 quarter 2, the value of export of gold has consistently declined for the 5 consecutive quarters.
Okay, the value of gold or the value of cocoa?
Cocoa, sorry.
It's been declining.
Yeah.
And, you know, I keep referencing illegal mining, for example, because cocoa, one of the challenges they say that is facing, some of the challenges facing the cocoa production, as we are told, is one, climate change, illegal mining, and then, you know, the issue of the diseases and all that. Could there be, for instance, a link between the surge in illegal mining and the decline in cocoa production? Because consistently we hear stories of farms being taken over by illegal miners and cocoa trees being cut down. Sometimes the cocoa farmers are helpless in that situation.
Yeah, so as the saying goes, you can manage very well what you measure. Okay. And in the absence of statistics, everything becomes assumptions and hearsay. So that is what Ghana Statistical Service is trying to do, to bridge in the gap. Now there is statistics on our export of gold, which data is showing that is declining from one quarter to the other. So now it's not about people saying or assumptions or whatever it is, but there is data and statistics to back the fact that our export of cocoa is declining from one quarter to the other.
Should we be worried? I mean, some would say that, well, if it is declining, gold is increasing, so what's the big deal? Should we be worried?
So in terms of international trade, one thing you would want to do is not to be vulnerable in terms of diversification. Okay. Because if 3 commodities are your major drivers, then what happens if there's a shock on the international market for any of these commodities, which we wouldn't have control over? So as much as possible, you would want to diversify in terms of your foreign exchange earnings, such that in the event of any shock in any of these 3 commodities, you wouldn't have to come to a halt in terms of your economic management. So these are the issues that the report puts out there for policymakers to have a look at. Okay.
And for the cocoa production declining, for example, do you have any recommendations to government in terms of what can be done to improve the numbers? Or Yours is just to provide them with the data for them to look at it and see that this is where the challenge is. We need to find ways and means to fix it.
Yeah, so like you have said, for Ghana Statistical Service, ours is to measure and make the data available for government policymakers, researchers to make use of. So it is our hope that policymakers, researchers would pick up this report and then try to find solutions or measures to whatever the issues are. Because we know as a country that we have the potential when it comes to cocoa production. So what has happened? Why the decline? So this is where we at Ghana Statistical Service feel that the policymakers and all the stakeholders should come together to begin to look at the issues and then what can be done to improve on the situation.
Okay, so beyond these key elements driving our surplus, what are the other highlights in this report?
Yeah, so in terms of highlights, let's look at it from the report from the point of continent. So Europe used to be our major trading partner when it comes to continents, but you could see that since 2022, quarter 3, Asia is taking over as our major trading partner, both for import and export. So, and China is the main country in Asia which is driving this change.
Okay, and perhaps what could be leading to this?
Well, so it has for international trade, you know, a trader would look at where I can easily source my commodities or products from, and then in terms of the easiness to trade. So possibly this could be the reasons why it's changing from one continent to the other.
Okay, so a major highlight is that Europe used to be our major trading partner, but now it's shifted to Asia, and China is leading in that particular regard. Any other elements that we need to pay attention to?
Yeah, and then in terms of gold exports, you know, Switzerland used to be our major intake of gold, but for this quarter, it's the United Arab Emirates, which is the major taker of our gold exports.
Okay, and let me just go back to the element of Europe being our major trading partner in the past, and now it's moving to China with moving to Asia with China taking the. For instance, with China, what was the trade volume between Ghana and China within that quarter we are?
Yeah, so for 2024 quarter 2, in terms of our imports from everywhere.
Yes.
Now China, our imports from China is about 20.9% of our total imports.
The total imports?
The total imports.
The one from China is 29, almost 30%.
Yes, 20.9%.
Okay.
Yes, that's about 1/5 of our imports. Total imports is from China.
And the rest is from?
And the rest is from all
over the world.
Yeah.
Then it means that China has a chunk of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then with regard to the gold exports, what were the volumes that were exported to the United Arab Emirates?
So in terms of volume, so if we take gold as a commodity, when we are talking about the shares that went to each of the countries, the United Arab Emirates, almost 40% of our total gold exports went to United Arab Emirates, and then 35.6% went to the Switzerland, and then 16.2 to South Africa, and then 7.5 to India.
But South Africa has gold.
Yes.
Why are they importing?
South Africa has been consistently one of our major intakers of gold.
Well, I'm curious why. Because they equally mine there.
Yeah, but it's one of our takers of gold. Yeah.
Okay, so the chunk of it is going to United Arab Emirates, and then Switzerland, then India and South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there's a need for us to diversify, because the question I also asked was, I mean, if people feel that gold is giving us the money, what's the stress? But you said it's important that we diversify so that when there is a shock, we are able to manage it. Now, how is it troubling that it is majority of the import comes from just three commodities: gold, cocoa, oil? I mean, this is something we should know, right? I think it didn't just start. So, and it's been like that for a while.
Yeah.
Why does it seem that we are not diversifying?
So,
Or is there an easy way out?
well, so that's one of the things that at Ghana Statistical Service we want to do, because most often, yes, we recorded a surplus of 5.4 without going into the details. So when you go into the details and you realize that 83.7% of is just three products, then now we begin to look at the data in detail. So aside this product, there are other products that we export.
What are some of these?
So aside this, we export plastics, iron and steel. We have some machinery and equipment, chemical products.
We export machinery?
And so it could be parts to other neighboring countries and all that. So these are the issues within the data that we want policymakers to look at. Are there other areas that we have potential, but we are just not paying attention just because we are comfortable with the three major commodities? Another thing I want to bring to your attention, so we have classified commodities into 10 major groups. And in terms of imports, for these 10 major groups, China is the main source for 5 out of the 10.
No, we'll come to that importation element in a bit. I just want us to go through the other products that we export. So I'm looking at it here. There's vegetables. We do that, right?
Yes.
And then plastics. There's iron and steel. There's also vehicles and automotive parts. And there are chemical products, machinery and electrical, and then equipment. Then the last three, cocoa beans and products, minerals, fuels, and so these other 7, is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7, and then other. If we should channel some more energy there, we probably would see a better diversification. I mean, because we have arable lands, we can do better with regard to our vegetables.
Absolutely.
And with plastics, there's a lot of pollution here. If we were to recycle them, we probably could do more.
Absolutely.
Iron and steel, I see many of the people that collect scrap all around us. And then also chemical products, I see. Vehicles and automotive parts, I find it very interesting. Is it because we have some of the local assembly plants here, or these are other agencies altogether?
Yeah, so this category is a bit aggregated. So we can break it down, go into the data, and know which specific commodities under this particular category
for vehicles and automotive.
Yes, that Ghana has the potential.
Do you have that here?
No, I wouldn't have that here.
All right.
But on request, that can be made available.
Okay, now let's talk about the imports. We've consistently been told that Ghana is an import-driven country. We import more than we export. And that's why, for many, they will be excited at this news that if they say that we import more than we export, and we have a trade surplus, meaning that our exports exceeded our imports, that should be great news. But then again, many say it's not so great. You are still importing at an alarming rate. What are the figures?
Yeah, so for import, like I said, so for the 10 broad categories that you mentioned, 5 of these categories in terms of import, our major sourcing country is from China. So if we are looking at the origin of items, we can look at mineral fuels. For that is the UK and UAE. But for other products, the major source is from China. For machinery and electrical equipment, it's from China, the major. Chemical products, China. Vehicles and automotive parts, China. Plastics, China. And then iron and steel, China. So for these broad categories, our major source of imports is from China.
And then again, you said when it comes to trade, people are looking at where it's easy to source among others, and the processes will not be as complicated as elsewhere. Is that the same for the imports as well?
Yeah, so for the import as well, because you would want to say that these traders or these importers or exporters are rational.
Okay.
So they would want to look at where they can have the ease to do
business. Okay. And what has been the trajectory in relation to our imports? Have we seen a decline, or we are seeing it increasing?
Yeah, so for imports, if you look at the classification, our major import commodity is mineral fuels, that's refined fuel. So if you look at it, it's constituted about 1/5 of our total imports.
Okay.
And then that is followed by machinery and electrical equipment, which hovers around 14 to 15% of our total imports.
Okay.
And then chemical products, also around 10% of our total imports. And then vehicle and automotive parts, and then iron and steel, plastics, and then vegetable products, under which rice is part.
So we are still importing a lot of rice.
Yeah.
I mean, over the years, we've consistently said we'll try and reduce the volume of imports when it comes to rice. Do you see that?
So if you look at the data and the statistics, yes, there's quite a significant amount of import of rice. So like I've been saying, this is where Ghana Statistical Service really want to step in to provide more data to guide policy.
And would you say that we are overly reliant on some countries? For instance, China?
Yeah, clearly you can see. I mean, if 1/5 of all your import is coming from one country, then that should be a source of concern. Is it that we can source from other places and we are not, or we are just comfortable with sourcing from that particular country?
Well, they say that the consumer is a rational human being. So perhaps, what if it's more affordable to go to China?
Exactly. So the issues of quality and all that comes
also
in when it comes to our imports.
Okay. And with the imports as well, is it just like you said for the exports, is it very important that you also diversify so that you're not overly reliant on one country? For instance, when there was this Russian-Ukraine war, we're told consistently that it was affecting the prices of flour, for instance, because wheat, we get our wheat from there, and then that's the base resource for the production of, flour.
Yeah,
so is it important that you diversify as well for the imports?
Yeah, it is important so that you don't become vulnerable. But when it comes to imports, one thing as a country that we need to do is to have a catalog of the things that we are importing, and then begin to have the conversation around, do we have potential to produce or domestically some of these things that we are sourcing from outside? What are the steps that we can take to improve on our potential so that we reduce the import of certain commodities that we have potential to save a little more reserves for economic development?
Okay. And the question I wanted to ask you is that at this point in time, yes, even with the explanation and everything, how does this benefit me, the ordinary Ghanaian? How do I feel the impact of this trade surplus we are seeing, at least in the second quarter?
Yeah, so for the trade surplus, what it means is that, yes, you are getting or you are roping in more foreign exchange earnings.
Okay.
So, yes, it's a positive sign for us because we have more inflows.
Okay.
And then now the question is, how are we turning these inflows around such that the ordinary person, you and I, would also benefit from the surplus that we have witnessed? And
in situations like these, do they have an impact on, for instance, your currency?
Certainly, yes, because then once you are getting more foreign exchange earnings, then it reduces the pressure on your currency.
And for this report, what was the duration within which it was?
Yes, so this is for the second quarter, that is April, May, June of 2024.
Okay, and so we are yet to have that of July, August, September. Okay, and any indication as to whether is likely to change, or we are still going to be around that same region where we are recording a surplus?
Yeah, so like I said, the major source is from the ICAMS, that's Customs Integrated Management System. So in terms of how the direction or what to expect, I cannot be able to, unless we pull the data, look at the data, and
so
then
we have
look
to
at
wait
the
till the end of
trend.
the September.
Yes.
And then that will also be done.
Yes.
But what is our position as a country when it comes to trade? If you are comparing to the historical trends, where do we stand?
Yeah, so consistently in terms of exports, these three major commodities has been our major export commodities.
And we have not bought it.
And then in terms of import, like I said, we are drifting away from Europe as a major trading partner to Asia as a major trading partner. So these are the things that are being revealed in the report, and we hope policymakers would look at it and then help us with the right policies.
A lot of times, our economy is described as a Gudgesberg economy. Have we not moved away from it? We're still there?
So that is what Statistical Service is trying to do.
That is what the data points to.
Yes, trying to put out all the statistics. So you could see in the past 3 weeks, we released the GDP, and then we have released the trade, and then also CPI. So these are the major indicators that can help us know whether indeed we are doing well or not. And
but are we doing well?
Well, so it's beyond Statistical Service. The policymakers would have to look at the numbers the way they are.
But you are the statistician. What does the numbers say? What does it require us to do from the numbers you are seeing?
Well, so for example, from this particular report, yes, Ghana has recorded a surplus.
Yes.
Must we jubilate, or we should pay attention? And like I've indicated in my submission, in terms of the surplus, it's only 3 commodities that are driving this surplus. Okay. Is this something we should be happy about? If these 3 commodities, in terms of it trickling down to have an impact on livelihood, employment, and everything, is this something that we should get worried, or is something that we should be happy about just because we have recorded a surplus? So we have put out the numbers.
So should we be worried? I keep asking you. Should we be worried? You have the data. You have this. You have the facts and figures there. Should we be worried?
Well, like I've said, I think that, yes, we should not be so excited about the fact that we have recorded a surplus. I mean, we should begin to look at our export potentials by looking away from these 3 major commodities. Possibly there are other commodities or sectors in the economy that we have not paid attention to, but we have potential. So this is what we expect policymakers to look at and then help us with.
And maybe this may be unrelated, but you know, as a country, we have some agreements with some countries where we take nurses too. How about that? Is that not also contributing to it?
Yeah, so that is all part. So that is trade in services.
Okay.
So this report is basically for trade in goods.
In goods,
So that is another aspect that Ghana Statistical Service is trying to compile data on, and then when it's ready, we can share with the public.
All right. And would that be the first time you're doing that?
That would be the first time.
Okay. Yes. All right. Okay. All right. Do you have any final words for us?
Yeah. So I want to thank you for having me, and I would encourage policymakers, researchers to make use of the statistics. For more detailed data, when you go to our website, we have the Stats Bank. You can get a very granular data on our international trade statistics.
Do you think as a country we take data seriously? Because, I mean, you know, a lot of the times, especially when elections are nearing, you see politicians throwing about, oh, this amount of employment, this number of employment have been created, da-da-da. But as a statistical service, do you have a bank for... You have the Stats Bank is there. Do you have figures for employment? Yes,
there's figures on employment if you go into the Stats Bank. And as you know, and as has been said, data is the new gold. So, and I said in my earlier submission, you cannot manage very well what you don't measure. Yes. So as much as possible, Ghana Statistical Service is putting out all the data, the statistics, to make sure that we don't plan in vacuum. We use evidence to plan.
Okay, but as a country, do we prioritize data?
So we get a lot of requests for data, and we have also tried to meet these demands by coming up with a stats bank. And then now if you go to our website, there's a lot of publications. And then we just also launched the statistical app where you can download on your phone, and then with regards to any data you want about population and all that, you can easily access it on your phone.
Okay, so whether or not we prioritize data, you can't answer that. You say, and you also mentioned that you get a lot of requests. The requests you get, is it from private organizations, or you're getting them from state institutions with regard to maybe policies they intend to implement? Therefore, they would want to know the figures and the needs of the people there before they go ahead and roll it out to ensure that it benefits the people, it's tailor-made, because there have been many concerns with instances where we just copy and paste without it necessarily impacting the life. So do you get requests from state institutions requesting you to maybe do some data collection to assess for some needs assessment before the rollout of policies?
Yes, so Ghana Statistical Service, yes, we have collaboration with ministries, departments, and agencies. And one thing we have recently done is to also set up the NSAC, the National Statistical System, where it comprises of all the ministries, departments, and agencies, specifically their research or statistics units, where we collaborate with them, help them build capacity on how to analyze data and all that, such that they can easily generate statistics for their superiors anytime they want to embark on any policy initiative.
All right, Dominic Odum, he is a principal statistician and head of trade statistics at the Ghana Statistical Service. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on the Morning Star. We're grateful that you were able to make time to join us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we are all waiting for the surplus to trickle down into our pockets. That is all everybody's waiting for. When it trickles into our pocket, then we know that, yes, we have arrived. This is the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM.